Hey guys, so even before I get into the review itself, just a little bit of a quick note. I pretty much thought I basically tell everyone which is that this week and next week are gonna be the only are gonna be the only officially released chapters of One Piece. After that, it's going on another break. Like we've only got like 2 weeks of One Piece, and then it is going on break again. Which, to be fair, to be fair, I think it's kind of it's necessary for him because with Oda, you know that even when he takes a break, he's always planning something. So I think what he's doing is that with with Wano reaching its like apex, the apex of its climax, so to speak. I think Oda just wants to make sure he's basically planned every little detail possible with this arc, so to speak, and especially considering that we're only in like Act Three, with like there's I think an entirely other act after this, so there's that too. But yeah, just thought I'd let everyone know that. Um, with that said, the interesting thing about this chapter is that even before I had read this chapter, one word that kept popping up in titles of reviews from channels that had read this chapter early, is tag team. And at first, I had a general idea of what I thought that meant, which was Robin jumping in and her teaming up with Sanji to in order to take out Black Maria and her goons. Of course, I quickly realized how little sense that made given the circumstances that landed Sanji in his predicament and just who Sanji is as a character. And so it didn't make sense. So that thought didn't make sense. And after reading the chapter, I was not only pleasantly surprised but hyped as fuck because we only got get Robin in this chapter coming in like a boss and team attacking like and team attacking team attacking Black Maria and her goons with Brook. But we finally get the fight set up we've been waiting for, which is Robin facing off against Black Maria, and you really have to understand the significance that of this setup. Like, Robin versus Black Maria is the first genuine 1v1 fight that Robin's really had in the new world. Honestly, and honestly, One Piece in general, because the last time I think Robin ever really had like a fight like this was probably Skypiea with Yama, or maybe her, or maybe it was her against Treble, but even that had Sugar involved. Like, it wasn't really a one-on-one fight, so it's like, yeah, this fight with Black Maria is really like Robin's first like one-on-one fight ever since the new world really started. And don't get me wrong, and the thing is, to a certain degree, I understand as to why Oda has pretty much left Robin out of the spotlight in terms of giving her like a true like one-on-one fight at this point, because it's if you look at it a certain way, like in an environment like the New World, well, it, when it comes down to it, Robin's skills as a spy and putting those abilities in the forefront are probably a lot more useful than just having her like have like a simple one-on-one fight with someone. Is and like being a spy and being covert, these are the more useful tools at her disposal in surviving the New World. But even then, I understood it. Even knowing that, I still understood to a degree that it did feel like on Robin's part that by giving her like so much of this like of these moments of like her just going around and spying and whatnot, there was a bit of a lack of personal growth through pretty much her being deprived of that experience of facing an opponent head on. And but now with this fight of Black Maria, it opens the floodgates in order for her to really just kind of go in and really just from show how just really show how much Robin has learned and how much she has developed as as a character and just her powers and her powers in general. Um, one thing I already like just from her saving Sanji from Black Maria is that just from what she says in her conversation, you can see that development already manifesting in the form of how Robin has kind of taken the title of Demon Child, like an epithet or a title that had caused her nothing but fear growing up, and but now in this scenario she's basically embraced it as a positive with how she says that she feels herself becoming a true demon when the lives of her friends are threatened. Like that is just so freaking badass to me. I absolutely love that shit. Like her just saying I'm the demon if every time my friends are with her, just saying, look, every time my friends are in trouble, that's the point where I see myself becoming a true demon. Like it was just it's such it's badass, but in a certain way, if you look, it's such a great character moment for Robin as well. Like it really shows how far she's come. Like if you threaten her friends, you're gonna know what a demon looks like. So yeah, I love that. Um, on the flip side to all that, I can already see. On the flip side of that, though, I can already see the arguments saying how this chapter and already this whole ordeal with Black Maria made Sanji look pretty pathetic. And it was a little difficult to defend like Sanji's role in this whole bit overall. I think in this particular instance, the one thing that was showcased is how much faith that pretty much that Sanji has in his crewmates in order to do the things he cannot, which honestly in some ways touches on an old theme that has existed throughout the entirety of One Piece, the idea that the Straw Hats, while all strong in their own ways, also have flaws, and how each member of the crew like pretty much compensates for like pretty much compensates for the pretty much others' shortcomings. Like it's an idea that honestly I feel has kind of been lost within the vast majority of the New World, but in this case it is a very welcome return to form, or at the very least in the way it's presented. In fact, honestly, the more I look at this whole scenario with Sanji and Black Maria, the more it feels very reminiscent of the battle in East Lobby when Prince Nami had stepped up and Prince fought like it was just Prince Caulifla in Sanji's place. Like it very like the whole thing of Black Maria and of Robin stepping in to face Black Maria, it feels very reminiscent to that, I feel. Um, Now, with that being said, the big question now is what is Oda setting up Sanji for in terms of who he's going to fight? Because, on one hand, the fight with King was left unresolved, but I think we can more or less assume that Marco's taking over the reins of that fight. So, with Jack's reentrance, I think we've found Sanji's new opponent, and honestly, I'm all here for that because honestly, well, I would have liked Sanji to fight King. Jack right now feels like the most likely candidate, considering that there's some unresolved business for what happened on Zoe, and with the Yakuza 9 having failed, pretty much Sanji's the best one to step up and fight them, since he was the one who spent the most time on Zoe. Um, if I did have one complaint about the chapter, honestly, it's that we didn't really get into who the shadowed figure was that is helping the Yakuza 9 or help them. But I guess like all things with Oda, he'll reveal it when the time is right. However, one thing that I hadn't considered until now is the possibility that the shadowy figure is Hiyori. And to be honest, the more I thought about it, the more that makes the more logical sense because as of right now, Oda has kind of kept her character just lingering in the background, and and with Oda, he pretty much never he always tries his best he always tries his best never to waste characters. So I wouldn't be surprised if the person who's in the shadows is Oda's way of bringing Hiyori back into the conflict. And the of course the other possibility, and this is something that a fellow AnyTuber of One Piece, it was Mr. Morge had brought up, is the possibility that it could be Toki as well. And honestly, I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about that if it's Toki. Like, in some ways, it again, it would make sense because a lot of her stuff with a lot of her like involvement in the whole Void Century has been unaddressed. But at the same time, I'm like, does it make sense with the? Does it make sense currently? Her, it would make sense with her powers, I guess, but I'm just trying to think like on the story level if it makes sense right now. Um, but yeah. And since I brought up Mr. Mjorj, I actually want to address something that's been floating around the One Piece community lately, which is the idea and the possibility of, despite everything going so smoothly, that the Alliance will still, in some form or another, fail. And again, this is something that was brought up by another One Piece anti-superhero like Mr. Morge. And honestly, after listening to a lot of his points, I definitely agree. And there's a possibility that despite everything going so well, everything can still fail, especially when he brought up the structure Oda's chosen to go with when telling the story of Wano and how the third act is the one that's basically marred by tragedy. Like it was at that point where it's like, okay, yeah, we haven't really gotten to the tragedy. And when you really get down to it, even though the Yakuza 9 lost, none of them really died. So it's not like that's really the tragedy here. Now, as far as what that tragedy could be, I don't necessarily believe that means a failure to defeat Kaido's forces, because I still genuinely believe Kaido's army and officers will fall by the end of this arc. But Kaido himself, I don't think is going to be defeated, because Oda has been pushing this great pirate war for the throne of Pirate King, and Kaido is still one of those major players. But even more so, I think the failure tragedy aspect that's going to happen with Act 3 is Robin's capture. I genuinely believe that's one thing I think that Oda's been building upon, is the very idea that ever since Zou, that Robin at some point is going to be captured. And I think that is where the tragedy is going to come in. Like Robin is going to be captured and probably taken hostage by Kaido or something, but by pretty much maybe the end of Act 3 or something. I also want to add my own little theory on top of what Morge has said, which is it's something I've believed ever since Dressrosa ended and Wano began, which is that whether it's openly or not, Luffy has kind of arrogantly believed he can overcome anything with his strength and the strength of his crew alone. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is willing to accept help just by the fact that they had formed alliance with Kid and Law and all that, but he also the thing with Luffy is that he despises the idea. The thing with Luffy is that going back to Dressrosa, for example, he despised the idea of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet in concept and just having the idea of this grand army, because he believed that he and his crew were powerful enough in order to take on anything. So I think the Alliance's defeat is also necessary in order for Luffy to realize he needs more than just his power and the power of his crew alone. He can't just depend on those elements by themselves. He pretty much does need to realize that the Straw Hat Grand Fleet is a necessity in order towards like taking on this, in order towards going forward with this whole pirate war thing. Like he wants to pretend like it's not a thing that's going to happen, but it is going to happen. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, I definitely think this is probably what's going to happen in terms of the tragedy of it. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.